what questions do we have? Want to go over on the short fight? 3. Yeah, that one. Any others?
5.
4.
Yeah, 5.
4. All right, let's start with 3. So 3 is not something we have done in here, but you should have done this in algebra, so way back review in memory, stuff like that. So we are dividing exponents. So when you are dividing exponents, you're going to subtract the exponents of the like basis. You're going to actually divide the numbers. So this will become 1/9. Subtract 9 and 4, so c to the 5th. Subtract 3 and 7, so d to the -4th. But we can't have negative exponents in our final answer. So I call it magic math happens. We flip this. And it becomes 1 over d to the 4th. So anytime you see a negative exponent, that's what happens. Then I can combine everything into one big fraction. C to the 5th in our numerator, 9 still in the denominator, and d to the 4th all in the denominator. So that would be your final answer, c to the 5th over 9d to the 4th. Do you have any questions about that? Or we are combining like terms, so distribute. Remember that there's a -1 here, so that's what you're distributing. Bring down this 3x. So you have 3x plus 10x minus 12 minus x minus 2. And then combine all your x's together and all your constants together. That's loading. So this would be 13x minus x would give us 12x. Negative 12 minus 2 would be negative 4. So that would be your final answer. Questions on that one? Right, and then number 5, graph the inequality. You have to remember your Poiluxe. It's an x equals, so it's a vertical line at 1. Because it is just less than, this is going to be a dashed line. And then everything greater than 1 would be everything to the right. So we would shade this area. Questions on that or any other shortcut questions? Have to complete.
Yeah.
There's 40, but we're not going to get to all 40. Actually, I think there's 45. Anyway. As a reminder, if you have not finished your Unit 8 tests, you need to do that as soon as possible. You'll have time in class today again. The last day to finish / do your Unit 8 test is the morning of 5/22. because that's when we take our next tests. So you must get your test done by then, otherwise it'll be graded as is. And then once we take the Unit 9 tests, seniors, your date is a little different, but everyone else you'll have until June 8th. That will be the last day for retakes, missing work, missing tests, except for your final. So keep that in mind moving forward. Right. Today we're on the 4th review lesson, compound inequalities, so make sure this is in front of you. And I'm going to have you guys write this down, and then you'll be able to pick whichever questions you want to go over. So for compound inequalities, they are two inequalities or more, but we're just dealing with two, that are joined together with and or. We're going to talk about the or inequalities first. And they have a tendency to graph apart, so they won't be facing each other. They'll be facing opposite directions. If this was the final answer, one of these would be a closed circle going to the left. The other would be an open circle going to the right. You don't need the interval notation, but if it is good practice, since that will be something you'll have to do in Algebra 2. And that would be your interval notation for that. Reading left to right. Brackets for equal to or closed circles, parentheses for everything else.
What?
Elijah, do you want to move up? But if you sit next to one now, you don't have to pay attention. Once you've written that down, look at the problems on that page. I think it's 1 through 5. Find any you want to see, do, go over, and review. Still writing, so just writing. I'm going to do write this down really. Okay, so you still need this. I think we'll have time to do 3. I don't know about 5 before lunch. But for number 3, you have two different inequalities. You're solving them separately. What you do to one, you do not do to another. The goal is the same. Get x by itself. So we can get rid of 9 by subtracting. The rules for solving are the same as solving equations. There's just not an equal to. We're not going to put one in. Divide both sides by 2, and we have x is greater than 4 for one time. Then go ahead and solve the other. Here we would get rid of the 10 by subtracting. Even when you get 0, you can keep going, divide both sides by 5. And then once you have your two answers at the end, you can put or in between them. Or you can rearrange it so that the one that's facing to the left, the less than, comes first. Doesn't matter. are both strictly less than or greater than, so they're both in the open circles at 0 and at 4. At 0, it's less than, so everything below it. At 4, it's greater than, so everything above it. And then if you wanted the interval notation, you're reading left to right. So starting at negative infinity, ending at 0, or starting at 4, ending at infinity. Okay. Do you have any questions on that? When we come back, we'll do number 5. Before we do number 5, did we have questions on 3? Did you have a question about 3? Okay. Ryan.
Are we going to be like using brackets in this?
Doing this part?
Yeah, when it's like the circles.
If you write the interval notation, you may need to, but it's not a requirement to do the interval notation. Doesn't matter. Alright, so for the inequalities and number 5, let's say we're doing this one first. What would be our first step? So we have negative 6x minus 3 is less than negative 15. Because I didn't multiply a negative on both sides, the rule where you have to change the direction of the sign doesn't apply yet. Then we could add 3. And divide both sides by negative 6. Because we are now dividing both sides by a negative, we have to change the direction of the sign. And then solve the other. What would be our first step? How would we start to solve that other one? Subtract 1. And our last step, or the next step. Divide both sides by -1. So then what happens to the sign? Changes direction. X is now less than or equal to negative. If you want to put it in order, the bottom one would be that in order. Then we can graph it. X is less than or equal to negative 4 is going to be a closed point going to the left. The other one is going to be an open circle at 2 going to the right. Again, the interval notation part is not necessary, but if you want to put that for practice, this is going to start at negative infinity, end at negative 4 is closed, so bracket, or start again at 2 and end at infinity, all parentheses. What questions do we have on 5? Once you have that written down, go ahead to the next page. and inequalities. You can go ahead and write this down. So or and inequalities are complete opposites. If or inequalities have a tendency to graph apart, and inequalities have a tendency to graph together. So if this was the final answer, these would both be closed circles. In reality, it would look like this. Closed circle at -6 going to the right. Closed circle at 1 going to the left. But the goal is to find out where they overlap, which is why there's just one single line with endpoints. If you were writing that in interval notation, both of these are equal to, so they're both brackets. And then you'll put the start and the end. And then because the solutions fall between two endpoints, they usually condense the answer to look like this. So that should look familiar from our domain and range, from Unit 8, and from when we did this the first time. But it's going to be, the two numbers are going to be on the end. Always going to be a less than or equal to, depending on if the sign is less than or equal to, if the sign is equal to or not. And then with X in between. Once you finish writing that down, look at the questions on this page. Find any you want to see, do, go over, review. Anyone still writing this part? 9. 10. Someone else said 9, but okay. Any others? Plus. Okay. For 9, the goal is still to get X by itself, but what we do to one piece, we're doing to everything. So we would get rid of the 1 by subtracting it, but we're going to subtract it everywhere. We have -2 is less than 2 over 3x is less than or equal to 4. What would be our next step? How could we get rid of that 2/3? Multiply by. Okay. So we could either do this in 2 steps or do it in 1. If we're doing it in 2, we could multiply everything by 3. And then divide everything by 2. In one step, you could have multiplied each piece by the reciprocal. So 2/3, you take that and flip it 3/2, multiply that by everything, you would have got the same answers. And one less step. So we are going to have an open circle and a closed circle. Open at -3, closed at 6, with a line connecting them. If you wanted to do the interval notation, this one would be a parenthesis starting at -3. This one would be a bracket ending at 6. What questions do we have on 9 before we do 10? And there are multiple ways to start this, but what do you think we should do first? it'd be the same amount of work either way. But yes, you could also do that. That only works if everything is divisible by what you want to divide it by. So then, it's a normal problem. Get rid of the 12 by adding it. And then divide everything by 2. So to graph this, it's going to look similar. Open circle at 5, closed circle at 8. The line connecting them. And when you write the interval notation, parentheses, 5, bracket, 8, or 8. Do you have any other questions about that one, or questions on this page we want to do to see go over? 8. Anyone still need 10? So what would be our first step in 8? Add 4 to all sides. We have negative 12 is less than or equal to 3x, which is less than or equal to 6. And then what would our next step be? Divide everything by 3. We have negative 4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 2. So will these be open or closed circles? Closed, both of them. And then in your interval notation, those would both be brackets. Other questions on this page? Look at the very last page, see if there are any questions we want to go over, see, do, review. If there aren't, then for the rest of the class you can be working on practice on this stuff. Going back to do Khan Academy quizzes, Unit 8, the ones that are on the board. If you need to finish your tests, you can be doing that now. / if you need to work on retake work, you can be working on that now. Make sure you're using this time wisely. Let us know if you need our help. But you have